you know what today's topic is on shopping in traditional markets and cooking food and experiencing local culture in that way. So you guys know how much I'm a thematic traveler, and so, but this today I'm going to talk about using that thematic travel idea um, around food. And about 15 years ago, I was still kind of working with my, had my family, had a lot of commitments, but I came up with this romantic notion of going to Mexico for a few weeks and renting an apartment near a market and learning how to shop there every day and then taking the food home and coming up with some cool menus or something, or just, making one item from the cuisine of the area, but just learning about the ingredients. But, I had all these commitments at home and I wasn't going to be able to be gone for that long. And after a while, I just decided that it was kind of a pipe dream and the whole thing got buried. But then when I was in Peru in 2015, I realized that I'd started doing that without really thinking about it or planning it. I've always loved traditional markets, even the little touristy gift markets. I just like walking through I hardly ever buy anything. Um, so hold on, let me turn off this heat. We don't need any more noisy interruptions today. So, so I was living in Calca in Peru. Annie, you know where that is, and Nev, I hope someday you're going to get there. And now, even though Calca is in the middle of the Sacred Valley, one of the most touristy visited areas in Peru, there's very few tourists in Calca. I don't really know why, but that's the reason I chose it. As you know, I try to find places that there aren't very many people. And because I was planning to stay there for a couple of months. And I visited several guest houses and checked them out because I was going to be staying for so long. I didn't want to get stuck with one guest house. And I found Casa Wilkamayo. Um, and it was, let me get my PowerPoint. I got some pictures here. So it was, and I was kind of being picky because I didn't want to get stuck. Like I said, I didn't want to get stuck somewhere. But, I don't know if it was this beautiful private room with, look at that adobe fireplace out in the back. I don't know if it was because of this peaceful garden that was walled. It was a hand-built adobe structure. Everything in there was a hand-built adobe structure built by the owner. And I don't know if it was because of the kitchen. Look at this wonderful kitchen. But I think mostly it was because of the host family. David, Mabel, and their two children lived on the premises, but they had a separate home, separate from the guest house area. He had built it so that he could have a guest house. And also, about 10 blocks away, there was a public market that was hardly ever visited by tourists. And I could go there every day and get everything I needed to cook. Now, when you go to the market in most countries, you're going to find different vendors depending on the ingredients you're looking for. So in many countries, the different categories of food are purchased from different vendors. And in many countries, if it has a local specialty, then you're going to find items you're going to find some vendors that are just for that kind of item. For example, in Peru, Annie, this looks familiar to you. The olive vendors in Peru are all separate, especially in southern Peru, because they grow a lot of different kinds of olive, and you just go there to get your olives. When I was in Kyrgyzstan, because they have a lot of dried fruits, and especially, Central Asia is famous for their dried apricots. And a lot of raisins and there were about 6 different kinds of raisins that this man had, but all he sold were nuts and dried fruits, and that was his whole thing, that was his whole stall. And of course, if you're in Peru, all the potatoes are sold in a separate part away from the vegetables. Don't go to a vegetable stall and expect to find potatoes in Peru. They're not going to be there. They have their own area of the market. So what I would do when I choose vendors in a market, especially if I'm going to be there, be repeatedly visiting those vendors, I am very careful to find the best ones. And here I'm going to give you some tips around what my market strategy is when I go to any new area. Usually I find that when I walk into the market, here's the San Camilo market, Annie. We've been there together drinking juice and having a good time. This is in Arequipa, Peru. Look how busy it is. And this is just the fruits. Just the fruit area takes up like a whole football field. But anyway, I find that when I go into these food markets, and because I look like a tourist, I can't help but look like a tourist. Most food vendors won't even give me the time of day. They won't look at me because they assume that I'm just looking or taking pictures. So I put my camera away so I look less like a tourist. And and then I usually buy like one small thing, and so I have a bag of something that's obviously food that I'm carrying. And then they know that I'm shopping for food, and they will pay more attention to me. And that is one strategy I have to find out who the market vendors are that are genuinely interested in me and are interested in engaging with me. So then another thing I do when I go to the market, I usually have a list of a few things that I definitely want to pick up, but that's kind of an aside. But that way I don't forget stuff that when I get back to my kitchen and go, oh man, I forgot the cheese or something like that. So, so on my first visit, I usually allow a lot of time. I wander through almost all the stalls before I even buy hardly anything. If someone starts to speak with me in English, they obviously know that I'm a tourist, and and that's a way that they can engage me. And I'll usually go over and start talking to them and ask them about some of the things that they're selling. Um, Often they'll offer me samples, and the vendors, and you can tell when the vendors are really kind of interested. They'll ask like, where are you from? Uh, where are you staying? What are you doing here? Things like that. And you can start talking with them. And even if there's a language problem in Kyrgyzstan, I could not speak Russian, I could not speak Kyrgyz, but I had a way to smile and point, and you could find out what was going on. Uh, you could find out if they were sincere. And you can tell that, and you go into any market. You can tell people were interested in you as a person, or they just want your money. And you get a real feel for that after a while. Um, so once I was in Peru, once I was living there, I found that I picked out a few market vendors that I would then go back to every week. And then when I would show up, they would smile as soon as they saw me and wave, and we could have more conversation. And I got a lot of preferential treatment that way. Um, so when I was in Calca, Sonia, I met. She's one of the, actually turns out that she is one of the more well-known vendors and well-respected vendors in the market in Calca because she has so much stuff. She has so many different kinds of ingredients. Like she has all kinds of spices and flavorings. She has nuts and dried fruit. She has beans and grains, and then she has a whole bunch of these tubs here of salsas. And these are all things that she and her family have created, and you just tell her how much you want, and she scoops it out. There's sauces, there's garlic puree, there's ginger puree, which is great to have it all cut up for you. There's all kinds of ajis and salsas and all kinds of things that you can buy from her. And um, she always has a smile for you. And so that was my vendor that I always went to. And Mabel, who was my host at Casa Wilkamayo there, she told me Sonia is your casera. And a casera in Peru is a name that is used for a person that you have formed a trusting relationship when you shop. So you always go back to that person. And that was, so Sonia was my casera. I enjoyed visiting with her the most. And then right around the corner from Sonia, Yolanda, when I first got to the market, she saw me, she smiled, she asked me to come over. Luckily in Peru, I have enough Spanish that I can engage, especially with food, with people. And so they usually appreciated that as well as that I was trying with my crappy Spanish. But Yolanda uh, had mostly dairy and cheese. Now, she didn't have chilled dairy. She didn't have milk and such as that. I usually bought that in a small tienda or a small store. But she had butter and honey and cheese. Those were the things that I bought from her. And then before I went to the market, one of the concerns I have if I want to purchase meat is it good? That's the thing that can make you sick faster than anything if you get bad meat. And so, but she told me that Alex was always had fresh chicken, and she always bought her chicken from Alex. And so that's who I went to, and he was very close to actually Yolanda's stall. And the nice thing was is that um, he would you could just go and point to the pieces of chicken that you wanted, and he would put however many you wanted in a bag and weigh them up for you. So you could take if you wanted, if you had a kid that needed three drumsticks from the chicken, you could say you want three drumsticks and two breasts or whatever. You can pick out. You can custom make your own package. Nothing is prepackaged. So while I was in Calca, though, I never really found a particular potato vendor or fruit vendor. So I just went to different ones each week just to give them all a little bit of my business. But in Peru and in many countries, fruits are sold in one stall and one kind of vendor, and vegetables are sold at a different kind of vendor. And many times they will be in completely different parts of the market. So that's something that is a little bit different. We don't have all the produce isn't all together in one place. One day I took this photo and posted it on Facebook. This had been my market haul for the day, and I usually got my eggs at the little store right down the street from my guest house because that way I didn't have to worry about carrying them home and breaking them before I got home. But this was a haul that I took in one day, and I posted on. I had this game I played on Facebook. I'd often post things that I had purchased and ask people to guess how much it cost. This cost me 40 soles, or about $13 US, which if you think about how much food is there and how much food value is there, that was amazing. I don't think you'd get a piece of cheese like that in the United States for $13. Um, One day I decided to make pear empanadas, and with those pears that were hanging from the tree in that garden, there's tons of fruit trees and mostly pears. And it was fall, so there were lots of pears. And David was begging everybody to take pears from the tree. So I made a bunch of empanadas with the pears. Another day, Ma Belle also loved to cook, and she had a separate kitchen upstairs. And she invited me to come to her beautiful kitchen, and we made causa, which is a Peruvian dish, which it's a layered, it's almost like a kind of like a potato lasagna, but it's served cold. So it's like they layer potatoes and then sometimes some kind of a meat, sometimes a chicken or a tuna salad in with it, and then more layers of potatoes, maybe some cheese, and then we usually top it and decorate it all beautifully. And then you put it in the refrigerator so it can set. And then when you cut it, it's like a loaf. You can cut squares out of it and serve it. And I just love cow's Of course, I really love potatoes. I eat a lot of potatoes. Um, so one thing I forgot to mention earlier in all my craziness at the beginning is please be sure to uh, uh, comment or let me know if you have any questions in the comments box. And Annie, this time I am going to try to watch your messenger because I know Annie's having a hard time getting us on writing to me on YouTube. We don't know why. We're going to troubleshoot that one of these days. So anyway, comment, and I will try to watch your comments and answer your questions. Or if you have some experiences you'd like to share, please do so. So at any rate, if you like, I'm sure you like eating, but if you like cooking at all, I really highly recommend that you try some food explorations in one of your future journeys. There's a lot. Seems like there's a lot of blogs and videos and stuff like that and more on the internet about eating new foods when you're traveling. But most of them are eating in restaurants or street food, are showing how people prepare food on the street. I've seen a lot of wonderful videos watching people prepare food on the street. But I don't see a lot about actually visiting a country and cooking. And maybe one reason is that it takes more time. You need to stay in one place a little bit more time, and you have to have a kitchen. And that may be why you don't see that as much. But I really enjoy doing this. So I'm going to give a few tips about um, shopping, cooking, and eating while you're on the road in a way that will engage the local people and a ways that you can learn a lot about the local cuisine. Um, you want to look for wherever your guest house is, you want to be sure that is a nice traditional market nearby. And sometimes I choose a guest house based on the fact that there's a good market experience near it, especially if I'm going to stay for a while. And one way to do this is I use Google Maps to find out where the markets are around the guest house where I'm staying. And I just Google markets, but then you have to take it one step further to make sure you're not just getting a little grocery store or a convenience store, because Google thinks markets are everything. Big grocery stores, little grocery stores, convenience stores, and also the traditional markets. They'll all be on there. So you have to kind of do a street view or click on the links on Google Maps and look at the pictures to be sure if it is a traditional market. You can also Google like traditional markets, Cauca, or traditional markets, Arequipa, or wherever you're going to, and see if something pops up like in TripAdvisor. So that's another way. But I then locate that on the map and be sure that your guest house isn't too far away. Now, when I was in Sri Lanka, I was about a mile and a half from the wonderful Sunday market that you guys have heard about me talk about visiting with Raj every Sunday. So what we did was we walked to the market and then we took a tuk-tuk because Raj had tons, he was getting food for the cafe. So we got tons of food and loaded up the tuk-tuk and took a tuk-tuk back to the cafe. But I like to, if I can, just walk to the market and carry my backpack and and so I want it to be pretty close. Um, Another way is if another thing you should do is if you can possibly do so, try to stay at least a week. Um, because you're going to need time to get to know the market, uh, try out at least a couple of meals, and you're probably going to have other things in the area that you want to see, some other sites you want to visit, or some other experiences you want to have. You're going to need a reasonable kitchen at your lodgings. So again, I think last week when I was talking about hospitals, I talked about this is, when you're looking at your lodgings, either on Booking or an Airbnb is a good way to find lodgings that have kitchens that you can use. Check to see that you have a kitchen that it will be okay for you to use. And then you kind of have to judge things. If it's a family kitchen or if a lot of visitors are also using that kitchen at the same time, then you probably just want to do some simple things so that you don't tie up the kitchen for very long. But that's just something you'll have to decide as you get there. But you can do a lot of very simple local meals in a kitchen, in a small, very tiny kitchen. When I was 3 months in Sri Lanka, I had a tiny kitchen and just one little hot plate. So there's a lot of things you can do and still enjoy learning about the cuisine. But you do need to have a kitchen to work in, obviously. So here's a kitchen of a place that I'm going to be going in less than 2 weeks. This is off of Airbnb. Their pictures off of Airbnb, and I'm really looking forward to cooking in that kitchen. Let's see, what else? It's not a bad idea once you have a place to stay to write ahead and tell your host about your plans or what it is that you're going to be doing. You want to learn how to shop in the market. You want to learn about ingredients. You want to learn about the cuisine. And many times, if they are interested in cooking, they will know people who are, and they may be able to find a friend who will cook with you, or will take you to the market on a tour, or you can ask them if they can recommend a translator. When you go to the market, really, you don't need a guide. It's nice to have a guide, but they're kind of expensive. But sometimes you can hire just a translator, maybe a high school student that's learning English and wants to do that, and it's not very expensive. So maybe the first few times you go to the market, maybe you take a translator with you so that you can get question answered about the different ingredients and how to use them. Um, I do a reconnaissance of the market on day one, or the first day that I've kind of gotten over my jet lag, if I've spent several days trying to get there. Um, so I recommend that you kind of, just like I said before, go through the market, make notes, think, have questions to ask people. And I just do that on my own without a translator. I just am looking around, I'm just gawking like a tourist. But a lot of times, even on that day, even on the first day, you may meet some people that you want to be your casera while you're there. Um, you might consider taking a market tour or cooking class. Sometimes they're together. They're a little expensive, and you guys know how cheap I am. I've never done this before, but I think it would be a lot of fun. Um, because usually what happens is it's somebody local who will take you through the market and tell you about ingredients, and you guys and you in the group, usually it's maybe 4 to 6 people, usually it's a small group, will pick out things in the market and take them back to her kitchen, his kitchen, and then prepare the food, and you will learn a lot about preparing the ingredients and a lot about the cuisine of the area. You'll have somebody you can ask lots of questions of. So I recommend them, but I don't usually engage with them just because I am such a budget traveler. But it is a way that you can learn quickly about the the cuisine of the area. But don't stop just at that class. So now that you've got all that knowledge, be sure that you're spending enough time at your location that you can then go back to the market and maybe come back and do some of your own things in your own kitchen. And that will really solidify this feeling that almost like traveling like a local, as they say, traveling like a local. It's very difficult to travel like a local, exactly, but you can come closer to it through these food experiences. So let's see. Hold on a second. Check one thing. So I'm going to give you, I think, a few. Oh, let's see. Oh, another thing that I've done, Rebecca and I've done when we've traveled someplace, going someplace. We met in Malaysia a couple years ago. It's been almost 2 years now. Wow. And before she came, we learned a lot about the food before we got there, and so that way we would kind of hit the ground running. One thing I did say when I talked about staying in a place at least a week, that experience in Malaysia that I had with Rebecca, we were only in one place where we had a kitchen, and it was only for 3 days, but we had a wonderful cooking, shopping, eating experience in that location, just because it was such a great market, and we had a wonderful kitchen, and we've done the research and prepared in advance, and kind of knew what we were. She kind of knew, the chef, my daughter, kind of knew what she was looking for. So a couple of places I think, to research the ingredients and the foods. I'll put these links in the notes once I have them up on YouTube. Once I have the video up on YouTube. But two of these websites are the uncorneredmarket.com and theculturetrip.com. And both of them have a lot of blog posts about food and ingredients and specialties of areas wherever you're going. Or of course, you can just start Googling. For example, the other day I just Googled, traditional markets in Ecuador, and I right away, like, 3 blog posts popped up, and um, one of them was, what, 5 tips for shopping at an open market in Ecuador. So, and including Spanish phrases you're going to need when you shop there. So that would be exactly what I needed going to Ecuador the first time. So of course, Google is your friend. Um, and if you want, you can read about a lot of my food experiences just by going to Cathleen'sOdyssey.com/food. Again, I'll put this in the links below. But you will see that there are quite a few blog posts of me doing exactly this, and even showing you step by step kind of how I put things together. I made tamales. Annie was there with the tamale day. We made tamales, and I learned to make tamales in a completely new way when I was in Peru. And I helped my daughter make coconut sambal, which I had learned in Sri Lanka, but they also have it in Malaysia, so we made coconut sambal there. I learned a little bit about making pitu, and you'll have to read the blog. Pitu is a really cool rice dish that's made in Sri Lanka, and I learned that's how I met Raj. Was he decided to show me how to make pitu in his cafe the first day that I met him. So there's lots of inspiration and ideas on my blog posts. And if you are planning to go to the Sacred Valley in Peru, and you'd like to stay with David and Mabel at Casa Wilkamayo, I don't know if I look at this beautiful, another picture of their garden. Let me know. I will put a link to their Airbnb site on in the notes as well. So any questions? I'm seeing, I think Linda's still with us. And if you have any questions or comments, I think it's like having a party because like my friends are here. Neb, Linda, Annie, I don't know who else is out there, but at any rate, it's fun to have parties like this because I don't have to show you what the condition of my apartment is right now. I could just have you see me right here and we could still visit and chat. So I am leaving here a week from Tuesday. I am traveling. I'm keeping it a kind of a secret where I'm going. I did travel a tiny bit last week. I went to Mexico because I'm close to Mexico here in Arizona, and I had a dentist put in a crown that I desperately needed before I cracked a tooth, and and it cost me $150, but it was just across the border. I found a dentist that was highly recommended, and he was like a block. All I had to do was walk a block across the border, and I found this dentist, and I have a new tooth now. So that's another whole story somebody could talk about sometime is medical tourism, especially dental tourism. I know people that have saved a lot of money going to other countries to have especially dental work done. So I talk about my next, so as a result, well, that was kind of a long way around to get back to the place where my next live event, I'm probably not going to have a live event next week. I will, because I'll be getting ready to travel and everything goes, I'm just crazy the last couple of days before I leave. And so possibly the following week, if the Wi-Fi is good where I'm at, I will try to have another maybe live event. Maybe I'll just be talking about my experiences of this latest, a little jaunt that I'm taking. So I don't have anything else to say, but except that I will say farewell. I wish I could see all of you in person. It would be so much fun. I always tell people that's the problem of knowing people all over the place is that it's so expensive to get back to go see them, and you don't get a chance to see them very often. But I will say thanks for joining me. Thanks for hanging in there those first 20 minutes. I'm sorry that I had something messed up in my settings. But I'm going to leave you with a little video short that I made this week about just some little vignettes, little pieces of pictures and videos that I've taken in markets and cooking around the world. So bye. Have a good week. Thanks, Linda. Sending love and safe travels to you as well. Bye, folks.